Good evening, everyone. Thank you so much for joining me here at the First Alert Desk. My name's Karli Barnett. We want to give you a look at some of the stories that we are following for your Friday. We hope you're looking forward to the weekend ahead. And speaking of which, I know you're probably going to want to know your forecast for the weekend. So stay with us because in just a few minutes, we're going to have First Alert meteorologist Fred Campagna coming with a look at what we can expect, and he will be here in just a few. But in the meantime, I do want to give you a look at some of the stories that our reporters are working on for later on tonight. Quick programming note, of course, you can always join us at 10 o'clock on Peachtree TV or 11 on WANF, and you can watch us streaming or through our website or however you enjoy your news. But in the meantime, you can always check back with AtlantaNewsFirst.com as well as our Atlanta News First app for updates on any of these stories, or if you want to read a little bit more about them, you can always go there as well. So we're going to begin with some of our latest breaking news. This has been a troubled lounge, troubled establishment that we have told you about here at Atlanta News First. And in fact, we reported right here on the First Alert Desk yesterday how the manager of this lounge was actually arrested while in court for separate charges. Well, there has been a hearing going on, a lot of back and forth. There was even a petition at one point trying to get it shut down. And now it seems like people who have complained about the 1145 Lounge have their wish. This is video of the owner, as we mentioned, Jabril Defay, being arrested while in court yesterday. Again, that was for completely separate charges. But a heated courtroom battle over whether or not to shut it down ended with the decision to close 1145 Lounge permanently. Now, today's ruling stemmed from a shooting that happened at the business back in May. The violence on Mother's Day claimed the lives of 2 people. 4 others were hurt. Attorneys for the city of Atlanta argued in court that the business has been a nuisance and violated several building and alcohol permits. They also said that the restaurant was operating illegally as a nightclub. 1145 Lounge is a tenant, meaning they rented on that property. And tonight's ruling also prohibited 1145's owner, Jabril Defay, who, again, you saw there. We'll take you back to the beginning of this video here. There we go. It says that he cannot reopen another business on that same site. So again, taken into custody yesterday, facing charges in another case. We mentioned that a petition years ago actually started trying to get this location shut down, but it was ultimately the shooting that happened back in May, in which 6 people were shot, that led to the court hearing that we have had these last couple of days. They had been on a temporary restraining order since that shooting and ultimately determined that they could no longer operate. So we will continue to stay on top of any developments. Atlanta News First reporter Madeline Montgomery is going to join us tonight at 10 and 11. She is speaking with someone who was impacted by that shooting on Mother's Day. So we hope you'll join us a little bit later on. She will have all of the latest information then. Now here's another update to a story that we first brought you as breaking news here on Atlanta News First. Actually, last weekend we first brought this to you as breaking news right here at the First Alert Desk. And this is the Bell Collier Apartments. They're on Howell Mill Road. A massive fire caused a ton of damage to that building. And we now know the cause of it, according to investigators, was a grill, they say. So our reporter Joshua Skinner is going to have a little bit more on this later on, but yeah, you remember this video. Hundreds of people without a home as a result of a grill fire. Authorities say the fire is suspected to have started when a propane grill was filled with charcoal, adding that that was a violation of building safety protocols. But police did also blame the property owners for what they called inadequate fire controls. So this all happened due to an unsanctioned party with more than 100 people taking place on that rooftop of the Bell Collier Village Apartments. Atlanta Fire Chief Roderick Smith said, quote, "The failure to maintain essential fire safety measures and the presence of an unsanctioned party with hazardous equipment underscores the need for property owners to ensure compliance with safety standards. The disregard for fire regulations not only endangers lives, but complicates our emergency response efforts," he said. More than 80 firefighters worked for more than 2 hours to put out the fire at the 5-story building. It's still unclear if anyone is going to face charges in relation to the fire, but that still remains under investigation. Fire crews had to rescue several pets, but the good news here is that no lives were lost. One firefighter did experience heat exhaustion and had to be treated on site. But yeah, you see all the smoke, all the flames. We now know, and our reporter Bridget Spencer, when she was first covering the story last weekend, had spoken to several people who lived in the building who were now having to stand by and wait for assistance or wait for loved ones to come pick them up, who had said they heard suspicions that the fire may have started on the roof, possibly related to a grill, and now investigators have confirmed that information. Of course, as they said, they are also looking into other factors as well. Still no word on any charges that people may be facing. And here is a story that we have been following very closely at Atlanta News First, and not just here in the metro Atlanta area, not just in the state. This has made national news, and we want to continue to stay on top of this because we know how many people out there have been following this so closely. But the man who was accused of taking a missing 12-year-old Hall County girl to Ohio will remain in Ohio for at least a little bit longer. That is what we have learned today. This is Antonio Augustine, 34 years old. Again, he is accused of taking a Gainesville girl from her home up to Dover, Ohio. He was supposed to be extradited to Georgia to face charges, but that process is now delayed because criminal proceedings continue in Ohio, where the Guatemalan national lived. So we have learned that based on the information, the most serious criminal offenses in this case occurred in Ohio. That is according to the district attorney there, the district attorney for the Northeastern Judicial Circuit of Georgia, in a statement going on to say it makes sense that the suspect answer to what charges Ohio proceeds on first. So at this point, no charges have been announced for Augustine in Hall County or Tuscarawas County, that's in Ohio, where Augustine was ultimately taken into custody. But Hall County Sheriff Gerald Couch says his ultimate goal is to see justice served. As we said, Augustine is accused of picking the 12-year-old girl up from her Gainesville home back on May 29th, bringing her to Ohio, and investigators say she and the man had been messaging through Facebook Messenger online. So the child would not be found until 2 months later. We have given you many updates here at the First Alert Desk through our reporting at Atlanta News First, and thankfully we do know that the child is okay, but at this point still up in the air on when the suspect could be extradited to Georgia. As they said, they want the legal proceedings to take place in Ohio. We know he is facing charges there. He will be facing more charges in Georgia. They have not outlined exactly what charges Augustine is facing. So again, this still remains a very fluid investigation, but we will, of course, keep you updated both on air and online as we learn about any other details. Let's move on now to the campaign trail, and we know the Vice President Kamala Harris, she has garnered a lot of support very early on, ever since President Joe Biden had announced that he would be dropping out of the presidential race. And now it's not official yet, but we have learned that she has secured enough delegate votes to become the Democratic Party's nominee. So we have some video here of her in Atlanta. The Democratic National Committee Chair, Jamie Harrison, said today that she secured those votes. The announcement was made before the online voting process ends Monday, just really reflecting the speed of a campaign eager to maintain momentum after President Joe Biden ended his re-election bid and endorsed Harris as his successor. This happening just less than 2 weeks ago now. Harris is poised to be the first woman of color at the top of a major party's ticket. She joined a call with supporters to say that she is honored to be the presumptive Democratic nominee. No other candidate challenged Harris for the nomination, and she swiftly solidified Democratic support. Democrats do still plan a state-by-state roll call during the party's convention, the traditional way that the nominee is chosen, but that will be purely ceremonial because of the online voting process. Now, on the other side of the ticket, former President Donald Trump will be in Metro Atlanta tomorrow, along with J.D. Vance. They will be speaking at Georgia State University, and we will be carrying that here on Atlanta News First. The rally starts at 5 o'clock. The former president, again, at Georgia State University with his VP pick, Ohio Senator J.D. Vance. He's going to be less than a mile up the hill from the Fulton County Courthouse, where his election interference case is still ongoing. Trump and Vance have already held one rally together in Michigan right after the Republican National Convention that was held earlier this month in Milwaukee. But there are still a lot of undecided voters up for grabs here in Georgia. And as we have seen the momentum from the Trump campaign, from the Democratic side of things, presumably Vice President Kamala Harris's side of things, both of them being here in Georgia, making many, many visits to Metro Atlanta and Georgia as a whole, we know that our state is so key to winning this election. And obviously their tickets know that as well. Several polls came out last week that show a potential Harris-Trump race to virtually be a toss-up. That is according to the latest polling. So it'll be interesting to see what happens. But as we said, we will be coming to you with more information from that rally tomorrow here in Atlanta. Going to go ahead and take you back out live now and give you a live look. How about that? Over Marietta Square, we see Kennesaw Mountain in the distance. And as I said, we know the weekend is quickly approaching, and you all want to know, well, what's the weather going to be like for my weekend? What can I do? Can I get out and about? Well, I have someone here that can answer those questions for you, and that is First Alert meteorologist Fred Campagna. He is joining us now with a look at what your forecast will be. All right, Fred, I'll hand it over to you.
All right, awesome. Thank you, Karli. We'll take a look at this near sunset here, and I have a different view to show you in just a second, but it's interesting. There's a lot of dust in the air today. You may have noticed that haze showing up over North Georgia. That is dust, Saharan dust, that is worked its way across the ocean and into the southeastern United States. Let me get a couple of things squared away over here. Bring myself up, bring my weather computer up. How's it going on this Friday evening, heading into the weekend, first weekend of August, and it does look like it is going to be a pretty nice one overall for us. So that's good news. Not quite as hot as it has been. It'll be about as humid, though. That's not changing anytime real soon. So plenty to tell you about. There's a look at that kind of hazy, dusty sky over Midtown there. Visibility not as good as it could be, but it's pretty fine evening so far. Still really warm out there. Temperatures are in the low to mid 80s right around and inside the perimeter. Outside the perimeter, we have some 70s, especially north and west, where there have been clouds that have been pretty thick during late afternoon and early evening hours that have prevented the temperature from rising again after those clouds and a couple of showers moved through late this afternoon. Look at the dew points here, 60s and low 70s, indicating that it is still pretty humid out there. There is a potential for a couple of showers or storms to come rumbling through during the late night hours. Actually, late evening through about 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning would be the timing for any of that. You could see a couple of storms developing southeast of Huntsville and heading in our general direction. And our First Alert forecast radar shows some of that activity over North Georgia, scattered about throughout the overnight into very early tomorrow. But by 10 o'clock tomorrow morning, back into some sunshine. Low temperatures tonight will be in the low to mid 70s. About normal, a little bit warmer than normal for us during the overnight hours. So muggy day tomorrow, hot, humid, high temperature, about 90 degrees during the afternoon. Only a 20 to 30% risk of an afternoon shower or thunderstorm. And there are the high temperatures across our area. Not quite as hot as you go up into the mountains, so not a bad day to be up in Ellijay or Helen. Temperatures in the mid 80s, a little hotter as you go to the south, low 90s, LaGrange over to Thomaston to Eatonton, and pretty close to 90 around the metro. As far as the risk of any rain or thunderstorms go, relatively low. Best chance would be south and east of Atlanta, where it's a little bit hotter. On Sunday, it also looks like a relatively low chance, about a 20 to 30% chance of getting a thunderstorm on Sunday afternoon. Temperatures are going to be very similar. Also, here's a look at potential tropical cyclone number 4. This is expected to become Debbie on Saturday. Tropical storm Debbie. We've had a 3-week break between systems here. Once Beryl dissipated over the United States, there hasn't been much activity at all. But we're in August now. We're expecting we're expecting the activity to really pick up over the next few weeks here. This system is moving across Cuba right now, and you can see the circulation with it. The center of it is where that red X is, so it is being impacted by the island of Cuba. Once it gets out over the Gulf of Mexico, it should fare a little bit better, and it should strengthen some. So right now it only has winds of 30 miles an hour. Notice how by Saturday afternoon and Saturday night, that's when it transitions from a tropical depression into tropical storm Debbie. By Sunday afternoon, it may be a 50-mile-per-hour tropical storm west of Tampa Bay and heading for the west coast of Florida, moving up through the Big Bend area, crossing Florida, possibly into South Georgia on Monday afternoon, and then its exact track from there is uncertain, but it needs to be watched very closely. If it's to the east of that cone, or the eastern side, the right-hand side of that cone, then it is possible that it could actually become a hurricane because it'll be out over some relatively warm water, and these storms, as we know, really like warm water for fuel, as opposed to being over land where they're less likely to strengthen. If it's on the western side of this cone or the left-hand side of it, then it has a better chance of having an impact here in North Georgia. And you can see that by Wednesday afternoon, it is projected to be somewhere off the Carolina coastline or possibly inland in North or South Carolina. But that is uncertain at this point. And there are some computer models that actually do bring it back in our direction late next work week. So that's definitely something to keep an eye on. How about these rain totals? Again, this is just one computer model that we're looking at, but a half a foot of rain is possible over parts of Florida. And then even more than that, if this storm slows down and hangs out near the Georgia and South Carolina coast, some spots could get upwards of a foot of rain as this system moves through. So we'll be watching that one all weekend long. Here's Atlanta's most accurate 7-day forecast. And it'll be hot. It'll be humid throughout. Temperatures in the low 90s early next week. Right now, we're keeping any impact from what could become Debbie away from us. But watch that latter part of that 7-day forecast, Thursday, Friday time frame. If that storm tracks a little bit closer, then we may have to up those rain chances, lower those temperatures. It'll all depend on what happens with that potential tropical cyclone number 4. All right, have a great weekend. We'll catch up with you next week.